some Resume 101. This is meant to be an introduction to give you some core basics and functionality to really think about how to construct the document, what are some considerations you really want to think about when framing your experience, and how do you really think about the audience that will kind of consume the information in a positive and relevant way. So first things first, before we actually get into the document construction, we really want to make sure that we encourage you and empower you to engage in a process of reflection to understand at a core level who you are, and more importantly, what are you looking to communicate to either an organization or specifically a hiring manager that is screening for a specific role. So thinking through a couple of core questions is going to be critical. So such as, what are my strengths, skills, talents, and interests? So thinking about the ways that you're going to communicate and specifically highlight that in a meaningful way, and that's targeted and that's relevant for the organization or hiring manager. How did you start to develop those towards my profession as the way that you want to move forward in your professional trajectory and career? Third, where your experience is currently located. Do you have part-time employment? Are you volunteering? Do you have internships? Collectively, where have you gained your knowledge, skills, ability, and experiences that make the most sense? And more importantly, what do they say about me as a person, as a professional? So how does it connect you to organizations' missions, values, kind of standpoints that really make an important emphasis on their kind of construction of who they want to hire? And ultimately, what do you want to do? How do you want to leverage the totality of your knowledge, your skills, your abilities, and your competencies to kind of be successful? What we normally kind of encourage you to think about is that a significant portion of career development is done in the reflection stage and is needed to help effectively shape and frame the way that you're going to construct the document. After you take some time to really reflect on that document, you can then move forward in terms of some of the core components that are needed to construct the document. So what we will do now is move forward to some of the core components and talk about how do you frame them and highlight them specifically on your document. So the first area to really think about when thinking about your resume construction is their contact information. So when we think about the content, the point of this section is to really make sure that if a hiring manager wants to connect or contact you, they have the adequate and relevant information to do that. So at a core level, your name, your potential phone number, your address, an email address to really think about how we want to connect with that. When you think about your resume construction, your name is the most important thing on the page. So make sure it's large, it's visible, and it's distinct so that I can appropriate follow up if I have interest in reaching out to you. Second, when we think about email, it's meant to just be the plain text so you don't highlight it specifically. You want to make sure that you are using a professional email. So I wouldn't use an email such as your boy Kelvin97@yahoo.com, but really think about an email that's dedicated to professional interests, that's professional job opportunities that you can check and monitor, that's separate from, say, your Southern email, just something that you would specifically dedicate to this process. Note that you don't always have to put your physical address or your mailing address on your resume. It's a personal decision. In some instances, an address could be helpful if you're looking to job search in a specific area, versus some you just feel like you may not need to be present at all. Again, this is your document. It's a personal choice on what that looks like. And a professional tip is to make sure that you use the same header that you use on your document. So the same header that you would use for your resume is the same header that you would use on your cover letter and your reference page. So in terms of what this can constructually look like, here's a couple of examples. So the first example with Jane Doe, it's a simple, clean look and centered. Again, the name is the most pronounced thing in this example with an address, a phone number, and an email that's listed. The second opportunity is, again, still the name is still the most pronounced part of the section of a simple and clean kind of organization. And then the third example is one that doesn't include a physical address. It's just the name, email, and phone number contact that person wishes to look at. So again, thinking about this, your document is your document. How you structure and how you present that information is really up to you. The second core area that we really want you to think about when constructing your resume is your education section. So then this gives me insight into how the degree, the perspective that you're really wishing to show. So a couple of core things that you want to include, the name of the institution. So if you're attending Southern Connecticut State University, definitely want to include that, but also indicate that that's located in New Haven, Connecticut. If you are applying to positions outside of the state of Connecticut, they may not be familiar to where the institution is located. Second, you definitely want to include the name of your degree and major. So if you're earning a Bachelor of Arts or a Bachelor of Science in interdisciplinary studies, that's kind of how you write that as well. Most students may have, or some students within the IDS program may have questions about specifically how do I articulate the multiple cognate areas that I've had within my degree. So first, you would still write that you're earning either a Bachelor of Arts or a Bachelor of Science in interdisciplinary studies. And then on that second line, you would put emphasis or areas or cognates, colon, and then list your 1, 2, or 3 areas that you use to help construct your degree. If you are specifically using, or if you've had an associate's degree, or you transferred from community college or have previous educational experience, you want to make sure that you are listing your degrees in reverse chronological order. So that means the degree that you're attaining or the experience that you've had most recently should be used first. So let's say I was a student at Housatonic Community College and I earned my AA, and then I transferred here to Southern to earn my bachelor's. When I would look at the education section, when I'm looking at an order, Southern would be listed first because that's the most recent degree, followed by second, my degree at Housatonic. Of course, include that the expected date of graduation. So if I'm a rising senior and I'm looking to graduate specifically this upcoming spring semester, I would indicate that I'm graduating in May 2019, and just to make sure that's included. If your GPA is higher than 3.0, we always encourage you to include it. It's just a great way to kind of signal your academic performance and communicate the value of your degree. And at this point, if you are in the back half of your degree experience, specifically as a junior or a senior, we would encourage you not to include your high school education experience. So in practice, this looks like a couple of ways. So this individual specifically decided to just use a straightforward format here at Southern Connecticut State University. They indicated they wanted to abbreviate SCSU here. Because they were going to potentially use SCSU for the rest of their experience that they have in their resume. So that's a way that you can kind of frame that. This person earned a Bachelor of Science in the area of which they earned a communication, and they're graduating in May 2018, included their GPA. And so one of the things that you can also consider that when you write your education section is how you frame your academic honors and awards as well. So if you've made Dean's List, or if you've made President's List, or you received a specific academic scholarship, you can include that in your education section. The third area that's the most critical when we think about the resume is your experience section. So what's really important to first frame is that experience doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be a paid position. Experience can be a volunteer role, an internship, a full-time work experience, or a part-time role. The biggest thing is that an experience section should really emphasize the knowledge, the skills, the abilities, and the competencies that you've obtained specifically throughout your experience up to this point. So when we think about constructing your experience section, there's definitely a couple of questions that you want to start with. So collectively, what have you done? And what are you currently doing? And so when we talk about those two questions, you want to think about in what ways have I contributed to an organization, or in what ways have I had a positive impact specifically within the way that I've interacted or engaged with an organization. After you do that, kind of ask what is relevant, what have I accomplished, and what have I developed? Oftentimes when we think about constructing a resume, we think about the task or responsibilities that we had, but we really want to encourage you to think about how are you framing what you've accomplished and what you've developed over time through these roles. Most hiring or managers and organizations want to see specifically what did you do through this role, not specifically what you were assigned to a role. And thinking about also what have you started, and most importantly, thinking about what do you intend to gain through those roles. And so when we think about constructing the experience section comprehensively on the resume, we want to make sure that we show both directly related experience and complementary or transferable experiences. So it's really important just to start to know comprehensively what have you done, what are you currently doing, and ultimately what have you just started and begun. So when we start writing up the experience section, a couple of things that you definitely want to highlight. So first, you definitely want to make sure that you highlight what organization that you are currently working with, and specifically where that organization is located. And then second, thinking about the specific position in which you collaborated with this organization and when you were kind of working in terms of a time frame. A couple of things to note here. First and foremost, you definitely want to have a specific title in relation to the role that you had. So you don't want to say that you were just an intern or a volunteer. Help me understand what type of intern or what type of volunteer were you specifically doing. And of course, when we talk about framing your experience and the time length that you had, it's very easy to say that, oh, I only did this from fall 2018 to spring 2019. Well, from an employer or organization standpoint, you want to be as specific as possible. So the recommended format here is to do month year to month year, just to be as specific and contextual as possible. After you kind of write that core level of identification information, we want to write up a way that helps me understand how you contributed to your organization through the way that we think about framing your experience. So within this example, this person used 3 bullets to help sum up some of the most impactful or relevant pieces of their experience for the audience for which they're writing. So a couple of things to note when writing bullets for your resume. So thinking about the action verbs that you're kind of sharing. So I can say that I've connected, I've managed, and I've collaborated. Thinking about strong action verbs to help me understand the context and framing of the actions that you did are really important. Strong action verbs help shape the context and impact factor your hiring manager wants to take away, and ultimately will help frame how I think about the way you contributed to the organization. Second, when thinking about constructing your bullet points for your resume, think about what specific results or accomplishments that you took in relation to these actions. And so thinking about if I connected something or if I managed something, don't give me just specifically the task that you did in relation to that connection or to that managed process. Help me understand where you went and how that kind of process really impacted the organization. At a core level, when thinking about the resume, you definitely want to make sure that you have at least 3 bullet points to show that you have some type of impact or some type of relevancy to the company or organization. This specific position or example uses an internship. The second example that we'll live here is potentially a work study position or federal work study position. So thinking about how they are contributing here on campus through a specific department or office. And that's really important to start thinking about the ways in which you frame the collective and the totality of things that you're doing here. So when we think about a student assistant position, that's a federal work study role, you can show how you're still contributing to that function success, to that organization's day-to-day operations, and still helping people show that you have skills and competencies and developments that are still occurring through this role. So still the same structure, there's a specific organization and their location, the specific work title that they had in the month year when they started the role to when they're still presently engaged. And still, again, thinking through the ways that they framed the competencies or the skills or the knowledge points that they've obtained through this role. One final example is that if you have part-time employment, this is a great way to kind of highlight and showcase that as well. Still that structure is still the same or framed the same way. So you still have the organization, you still have the location, you have your title and when you are still engaged in this operation, and you still think through the ways that you're framing the kind of competencies, the skills, and the results that you are still obtaining through this role. So at a core level, the contact, the education, and the experience section are your 3 most critical components. From most organizations and hiring managers, they will spend 90% of their time through these 3 areas and looking about how you're communicating the results and the impact of what that looks like. When thinking about the experience section, for some of you, you may just have general experience and you just may want to frame all of it collective in a specific section. Versus some of you, you may have an internship that's directly related to what you want to do versus some other experiences that have contributed, say, here on campus or through a part-time role. And so you may differentiate your experiences to have a category that says related experience, and then have a category that says additional or general experience. What's really important is that it's your document and that you're framing your experiences in the way that you feel see fit. Once you get past these 3 core areas, the decision on how you kind of communicate what you want to highlight is up to you. So there's a variety of other sections that you can include that make the most sense. So a couple of things that we definitely recommend. When we think about a skills section, typically what we want to see is hard or technical skills. And so if you speak another language such as Spanish, Mandarin, you definitely want to include that. If you have technical competency or proficiency in skill-based programs such as, say, Adobe Photoshop, Microsoft Excel, these are things that we definitely want to know and you definitely want to highlight. The point here is that when we think about additional sections, our goal is to make sure that we fill out the fullness of the page of the document. Now, when we get to the length of the resume, there's a variety of opinions out there. Some opinions will say that the resume is only meant to be one full page, while some can say that you can have additional pages. Our recommendation is that to know that you can have more than one page as a document, but the most critical and most important information should be on page one. Our hiring managers and organizations share with us to say that, sure, you can have a more than one page resume, but if what I need to know isn't on the first page, I'm not going to go past the first page. And so really making sure that when you intentionally develop your document, you're thinking critically about how you're framing the most critical sections of the document to making sure that they can be consumed. So all in all, your resume is meant to be a targeted, focused document in which the hiring manager of the organization can take away key components and key understandings of who you are as a candidate and why it makes the most sense for you applying the role. Normally, when you do a resume, you may also be inquired or asked to help submit a cover letter, and we want to just make sure we touch briefly. So in a nutshell, cover letters are really the three things. They are complementary to the resume as a document, but are two separate things. The resume really speaks to your experiences, the knowledge, the competencies, and the skill sets that you bring as a candidate. The cover letter really helps frame how we should consume the document. So second, the cover letter provides focused insight and unique perspective into really understanding how did you come across this position and what this makes sense for you. And cover letters are specifically tailored to the organization or for a specific employer. So they're really meant to give unique insight and perspective. When we think about developing cover letters, all cover letters should really aim to achieve 4 main bullet points. So the first one is to really communicate direct interest in a specific position and a core level of rationale for applying for a specific role, graduate program, and understanding. It's really to explicitly say that I do have an interest in this role and I do have a specific connection to the organization and here's why. And to explicitly name that to make that most sense. Second, you definitely want to share a compelling experience or two to show the fullness and the comprehensive nature of what you bring to the candidate or what you bring to the organization as a candidate. So this is where you really advocate and say that you have a comprehensive knowledge, skill, ability, and competency set that you should, as an organization or employer, should pay attention to and really help highlight that. The third bullet, and ultimately is what is the most important part of a cover letter, is that it should essentially answer one question. Why is this job right for you right now? So as someone who's searching for employment or for an organization, you have the ability to apply anywhere, anytime you want, but you had decided to apply here. So help me understand that unique connection or the unique positionality. Help the employer or the hiring manager truly understand the connection as to why you are not to be treated as one of 50 or one of 200 in a recruitment pool and really stand out as a candidate. And finally, close the letter to thank the reader for taking the time to read and formally ask to continue the conversation via interview. And so really making sure that, again, this is a letter and that, you know, they took the time to really kind of connect and kind of understand what that process looks like. So at a core level, we hope that this has been a good introduction for you to kind of understand resumes and cover letters. Of course, if you feel like you need additional help or assistance, please feel free to reach out to the Office of Career and Professional Development. Have a good day.